has only entered a new chapter. And teachers will meet it, as we always have, united, unbreakable, and unwavering that in our belief, Alberta students, teachers, and school leaders deserve better. Thank you. I'll now take questions, Heather.
Julia Wong, CBC National. Jason, you mentioned that the ATA will fight this with every ounce of conviction and every form, and will challenge us in the courts. I mean, what are your legal options specifically? What is being considered right now?
Well, Provincial Executive Council has been meeting a lot over the last day and a half as we've been looking at Bill 2 and understanding the details in more depth. We've passed recommendations that we will launch a legal challenge against this. We'll leave that up to our experts in our law office to do that work, but we will pursue everything that we can and leave no stone unturned.
Do the last 3 weeks feel like they've been a waste of time, considering teachers are getting a contract that they overwhelmingly rejected and they have to go back to school with, similar conditions to what they left?
Absolutely not. I think I was saying earlier today when we were meeting with Provincial Executive Council and local presidents that I've never been more proud of my colleagues in this province. They didn't walk out of their classrooms on October 6th. They stood up for their students, for their schools, and for themselves. And they changed fundamentally the conversation about public education in this province. They changed the way that parents see how government is funding schools. We have seen conversations around private education funding occur. We have seen parents say enough is enough. My child deserves better at school. And I would encourage parents to keep that pressure up on school boards. They should be in there at school board offices and asking, why is my child in a class of 42? Keep that pressure on. People have found their voices. Teachers have found their voices. They've inspired people across this province of what it means to be an advocate for something you believe in. And I'm so proud of my colleagues across this province.
Hey, Travis McEwen, CBC News. What's the ATA's direction right now for teachers and members on extracurricular activities? Are they being told to volunteer with that in field trips or to not?
Well, we've told our members yesterday in a communication with them that under this bill, any kind of work to rule would be considered illegal, and there's hefty fines that come with that. But they need to evaluate and reevaluate how they're spending their voluntary time at school. They have the ability to do that. So, for instance, I used to coach cross country and direct the drama play. Maybe I'm not going to direct the drama play next year because you can take my rights away. Then I'm going to reevaluate the voluntary nature of my job. I'm going to do my teaching job to the best of my professional ability, but there's other aspects there at school that members can use their own judgment on how they want to go forward with that.
Many districts are waiting to hear from the province on what's going to happen with lost instruction time over the past 3 weeks. Is there anything that you would like to see, anything teachers would like to see to make up for that time that may or may not happen?
Well, one of the things I think I would like to see happen is a reevaluation of diploma exams in January. Teachers have lost time, and when I talk to some colleagues, they're like they will not be able to make some of that time up in terms of especially diploma courses. So I think if they've made the ones in November optional, they can re-examine the ones in January as well. We know through COVID that the amount those tests were worth, whether they were optional, it shifted every semester it seems, so we've got opportunities to look at that as well.
Sarah Comedino with Global News. When it comes to other unions stepping up and potentially taking action of their own, what are your thoughts about that kind of support?
Well, I think when you look at the notwithstanding clause used here in Alberta, every union, every worker, whether they're unionized or not, should be entirely concerned about what has just happened. If they're going to infringe on the rights of one group, they're going to infringe on the rights of other groups. I fear that this is just the start for this government. So for unions to come together and to have conversations about how they're going to support one another, how they're going to move together shoulder to shoulder to ensure that we don't erode workers' rights in this province, I think is only a good thing.
I know that teachers would never want to impact students when they return, but there could be a feeling like just that frustration. Like how can teachers go back to work with everything that's happened and also not put students in the middle of this, or be able to move forward and not have them further impacted?
Well, I've talked to several of my colleagues through the last day, and they're frustrated. They're emotional. Yesterday was a hard day for teachers in this province, and we have to recognize that, and we have to honor those feelings, because they've put everything on the line for 3 weeks, everything. And the government just chose to legislate them back and to strip away their rights while doing it. And they're going to have emotions going into school tomorrow. But the colleagues I spoke to also recognize that their students deserve to be in a school that is safe and caring. They deserve to have a teacher who is present and working with them. And I trust my colleagues' professionalism to the very core of my being. And I know that they will be there for students. They just might not be there for the government.
What is the ATA's next move here?
Well, we'll be launching legal challenges, of course. We've made some communications to our members, but we will, about voluntary extracurricular kind of work. We will take some time to evaluate our next steps. But I'll tell you right now, our advocacy work won't change. So you've seen ad campaigns in the past, like the least, for instance, because we are the least funded school jurisdiction in all of Canada. That won't stop, because that work, compounded with the conviction of my colleagues for the last 3 weeks, has made a change. It's made a difference in this province. Government, for instance, is now going to start collecting class size data again, something that we've been talking to them about for years. How do you truly understand the class size issues here in Alberta if you don't collect the very data that tells you what it's about? So we will continue to plan our next steps for advocacy work, because that doesn't ever stop. Until this government starts funding the school system here in Alberta to the way that it deserves to be, we will not stop in our work.
All right, I think we're going to move. Oh,
I got one.
Connor.
Sorry, Connor Hawk, CTV News. I'm just curious what you think about what the ATA is demanding, and since the government is using the notwithstanding clause, does that give you any thinking that that they will listen to what you have to say?
Or do you mean in terms of the task force committees and that?
Yeah.
It's my expectation that we're involved. When we talk about task force, the last time that the Alberta Commission on Learning went about, people had to present to the Commission of Learning what their thoughts were. I did it myself as an individual teacher in 2002. We expect to be at the table. What we're talking about in terms of class size and complexity fundamentally affects every teacher in this province, and therefore I expect us to be at that table as partners. We can't just be a participant who is just referred to once in a while as the task force is doing its work. We need to be at the table, because teachers will know fundamentally what will and won't work for them in their schools.
But doesn't using the notwithstanding clause indicate to you that the government may not potentially be interested in hearing?
Well, yeah, I mean, the government is going to have to work on some trust issues, obviously, because my colleagues right now are not going to fundamentally trust what government has to say. So we'll have to work that out through conversations about what that looks like and just how it will unfold at that point.
All right. We are going to move our questions online now. Caden, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Jason, I'm wondering what you've heard about teacher stress levels with returning to school and making up for this missed time.
I've talked to many colleagues who are, they're the spectrum of emotions today and yesterday. They're a little bit stressed about going into school, worried about how we're going to get caught up on some things. But I also know that teachers are professionals, and they will address the curricular needs of students when they get there, and they'll do their best to make sure that every student learns what they need to know from the curriculum as they move forward.
And other than government making November diploma exams optional, have you heard of any other changes or supports for this disrupted school year and making sure these students have the knowledge they need to go forward?
I've not heard anything more from government or school boards around that. We'll have to see if they have any ideas about moving forward. Whatever they do decide that they want to do, it would be my expectation that they engage with the association and teachers before they make those decisions.
Thank you for your question. Jack, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. It's Jack Rowe with the Canadian Press. First question, can you walk me through exactly how the ATA is allowed to challenge this in court? Because I'm reading the bill right in front of me, and it quite literally says, no cause of action or other legal basis for a proceeding rises against the Crown. And that includes like a regular court challenge, tribunals, kind of all of it. So how does the ATA challenge this in court when the legislation clearly says you can't?
Well, having just seen the bill most recently, we'll have to leave it up to the experts who we work with in terms of our lawyers about how they move forward with that. But to give you the specific details of what that would look like right now, I wouldn't be able to explain that to you.
Nope, that's fair. I figured I'd ask anyways. Another question, can you kind of just walk me through what you imagine teachers are doing today in terms of preparing to go back tomorrow? And maybe they're not preparing today. Maybe they're going to wake up at 5 in the morning tomorrow to try and do some prep before classes start. But can you kind of just walk me through what you think 50,000 Albertans are doing today before going back tomorrow?
Well, I imagine that they're doing a variety of things. This is a day, actually I hope today that they're processing the feelings of what happened yesterday. And a lot of them are. They're upset, they're frustrated, they are offended at the disrespect that this government has put in place for using the notwithstanding clause. So my expectation of what I think my members are doing today is that they're grieving. They're healing from this. They're processing the feelings of yesterday. We cannot underscore or underestimate the gravity of this decision that this government made yesterday. Not only to use the notwithstanding clause, but to ram it through the legislature in the way that they did, to limit debate in the way that they did. Something that we, as every Albertan, are fundamentally reliant on. That when bills and laws go through the legislature, that they go through in a way, in a capacity that has due course and justice, and that didn't happen yesterday. So I imagine my colleagues today are ruminating on that and processing those feelings, and school will start tomorrow and they will be ready.
Thank you very much. Matthew, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, Matt, excuse me, Full Mill. Jason, what exactly is the ATA hoping to achieve with its legal challenge? Is it, obviously, the notwithstanding clause blocks any ability to challenge in court, but would it be a symbolic message to get a court decision? What exactly is the ATA seeking here?
Well, we know that it's a tough hill to climb, but we're not afraid of climbing that hill. We're not afraid of doing tough things. Ultimately, what we want to see is the government reverse its decision on invoking the notwithstanding clause against teachers and their constitutional rights.
That's all for me. Thank you.
All right, Devin, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Jason. This is Devin Kuiper with Post Media. Just wondering, I just wanted to clarify, first of all, that there was not an expectation for students to be learning during the strike. They weren't expected to be doing schoolwork at home.
Teachers, part of a strike is to withdraw professional service. Therefore, teachers were not teaching students. I know they had access to some very terribly drafted online toolkits that the government put together, but students were our teachers were not expected to be instructing students during that time.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. And then you've touched on this already, but have teachers been given any, or will they be given any direction from their school boards or their principals about how to come back and how to pick up where they left off before the strike?
Well, that would be a great question for school boards to see just what kind of communications they're sending out to teachers. Again, you have to remember that a lot of this stuff happened very late in the evening, early morning last night. When you have a bill that reaches royal assent at 2 o'clock in the morning, we're less than 24 hours out from when this bill was first tabled at 6 p.m. yesterday. So a lot of people are scrambling to make sure that they can get a lot of moving parts going forward. To remember, an education system is not like a light switch. Can't just turn it on and off that quickly. There will be some growing pains through the course of the week, and I think people just need to have some grace and some patience.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Alejandra, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. Alejandra Lisa, Lethbridge Herald. I was just wondering if you can clarify something and maybe perhaps give me some examples on the difference between voluntary work and what could be considered work to rule, just to kind of see what the differences are.
Well, work to rule is a legal strike action. And so you would need to be in a legal strike position in order to do a work to rule campaign at your place of employment. When you talk about voluntary work, that would be things that teachers do that's above and beyond their professional duties, above their instructional time or the assignable time that they have within their schools. So for instance, I used to coach cross country. So that was a voluntary measure on my part. We would meet every day after school and we would practice, right? So that would be sort of the distinction between the two.
So in the case of, for example, the teachers watching over kids during recess, is that, what category does that fall under?
That wouldn't be voluntary time. That would be either instruction. It's mostly assignable time because your principal will assign you to do those duties. Therefore, it counts towards your assignable time.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet.
Thank you very much. Michelle, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi there, Jason. This is Michelle Belfontaine from CBC. I know we keep asking you questions about what kind of legal action you're contemplating. I guess the bill has been given royal assent, so I'm wondering, I mean, is there an option to have like an emergency injunction? Is that something you're looking at?
Definitely is on the table in terms of legal pursuits of what we can do. Like I said, we will leave no stone unturned to try to get government to reverse this decision that they made to invoke the notwithstanding clause.
What are the other options then? Like, I know we've been pushing you a little bit on this, but we're just trying to understand, like, what options do you have on the table?
Well, again, you have to consider the fact that we just got the bill yesterday afternoon, or actually evening, sorry, and we're still doing some analytical work on that in terms of the legalities of what it will look like specifically moving forward. But I'm sure that you will hear more from us down the road when we know exactly what we're planning on doing.
Nothing today? Like, are we going to hear something later this afternoon?
Not today that I know of, but I can guarantee you when we know, you're going to know.
Thank you for your questions. Kevin, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
You said you're going to leave no stone unturned to try and get this legislation withdrawn. In Ontario, when similar legislation came forward, teachers refused to obey it, and they stayed out, and that precipitated an end to the legislation. Are you considering that in this case? And if so, why? And if not, why not?
Well, we communicated to our members that we would comply and that schools would open on Wednesday. And that was not an easy decision by our executive council to look at that. It was a lot of emotional debate about moving forward in that capacity. But what we have seen with this language that is within this bill, that it is draconian in its nature. It has put some very strong fences around what teachers can and cannot do. And therefore we made that unfortunate and uncomfortable decision that we would be moving forward with this in terms of compliance. We will analyze as we move forward, and as I said, in terms of legalities of what we will do when we get to that point.
The bill also removes your ability to take job action against individual school boards or individual employers. So, and the government said that they would leave up to the individual boards the decisions on how to make up for lost educational time. So if the boards, say the Calgary board where I am, decides that they want to start changing professional days or diminishing the amount of time off at Christmas or eliminating this upcoming November break, how would you guys be able to react to that if you can't take job action?
Well, we would have to work with our teacher employment services that we have here within the association. We have relationships with all the boards and with all our locals about any kind of changes to calendar that we would have. Some boards and some locals have calendar provisions within their collective agreement that they negotiated locally. And so we would expect the boards to honor those provisions within the collective agreement, engage with teachers like around that. I mean, these are decisions that boards will have to make in terms of what they're going to do. But I think a board that might want to change the dates around Christmas holidays might find themselves in the business end of some phone calls from some parents.
Thank you.
One last question, if I could. You are essentially now going back to work with the state collective agreement that, as you mentioned, 90% of your members voted against. Do you feel like you lost? Do you feel like this was pointless? Do you feel like you cost them a lot of money and they didn't gain anything?
No, I don't. I feel like teachers have made a difference in this province. They stood up for themselves, they stood up for their students, they stood up for public education. Parents noticed, the community noticed, business people noticed, people across this country noticed what teachers were doing in Alberta. They noticed the stand that they took, and it's made a difference. We've seen for the first time government acknowledge some of the things that teachers have been talking about. Now it's regretful that they weren't able to negotiate a salary and a collective agreement that reflected within the collective agreement changes like student-teacher ratios, but we'll still keep pushing those issues to see if they can be resolved on a policy end. But the last couple of weeks have been something that has been difficult for teachers, but they knew that going in. They walked into it with their eyes wide open, and they wanted to make this stand. And when I've talked to members, they're proud of what they've done, and they are going to keep their heads up high and keep fighting.
Thank you for your questions. We're going to move back into the room here. I believe Julia.
Hi, Jason. With this legal challenge that you're looking at, is there any possibility, any sense of a possibility that students and teachers won't go back to school tomorrow?
We will be back at school tomorrow.
Are you hoping the backing of other unions could possibly help change the mind of the government? And do you welcome that pressure from other unions who've already spoken up?
Absolutely. Absolutely welcome the pressure from other unions on this, because this fight is also their fight. If they're going to come after teachers' collective bargaining rights, you can guarantee they're going to go after other unions' collective bargaining rights. It's something that even beyond the unions, other workers who are not unionized in this province have a stake in this as well. Because if they're going to start here invoking the notwithstanding clause, they've already indicated through 3 mandate letters that they plan on using constitutional measures such as the notwithstanding clause on the anti-trans legislations that they put in, Bill 27, Bill 29, and Bill 26. So we know that they're planning on doing it again. And now that we're on this slippery slope, I am gravely concerned about where it stops.
Connor Hawk, CTV News again. Well, I'm curious what your thoughts are. If, other unions could potentially be brought into this. If not all of the people within those unions are, as on board with going on strike as some of the leadership may be, are you concerned that might hurt your cause?
Well, what we'll have to see, and if we're talking about the common front, those individuals who are there, the leadership that is around that table, and we sit at that table as well, in terms of conversation, they will have to engage with their membership within their unions about what they want to do moving forward. And but we all recognize the severity of this moment.
And I'm also wondering, we're hearing about a lot of students who are planning walkouts on Thursday. What's your response to that?
Well, we try not to, it tells me that students got it. They understand. Students are participants within the school system, and they have every right to engage their own voices. If they want to, protest, they have every right to do that, because they are the ones who are sitting in overcrowded classrooms. They are the ones who don't have the resources that they need. And so we should be listening to their voices all along. It's one of the things I've always done as a teacher, is you talk to students about what they need and what they don't need, and then you try to help them out the best that they can. So I appreciate the fact that students have a voice, and I appreciate the fact that they've got the right to exercise that voice here in this province.
What did you think about Danielle Smith not being at the debate last week?
It's a great question, because I have a lot of thoughts about the fact that the premier of this province, who invoked a bill to take away the rights of citizens of this province, didn't even have the decency to be in the legislature. I think it's a disgrace. I think she should have been there. She should have listened to the debate that was going on in that room. She should have looked in the eyes of the teachers who were in the galleries and when that bill was tabled, she should have seen the tears in the eyes of those teachers. I did. So did other members of the legislature. I saw some of the other members of the legislature within the UCPC party laugh. It's unacceptable to me that the leader of this province would choose not to be there when she did such a fundamentally disgraceful thing.
Okay, if we don't have any other questions here in the room, I'm going to go back online. Bob, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Jason. Bob Colby from Jasper here. Albertans are watching this issue play out, and many of them I'm talking to are feeling stuck. They support teachers, but need kids in school. So what can Albertans do, what can parents do to keep the government's feet to the fire on improving public education?
You know, it's a great question. I'm glad you asked it, because the advocacy work doesn't stop today. Parents have been engaged. I talked to many parents who they knew things weren't great at school, but they didn't know it was this bad. So those parents need to now start holding MLAs to account. They need to start going to school board meetings. They need to get involved in their school council meetings at their schools. They need to start asking the tough questions of the people who are making the decisions in this province and start working towards the fact that in February 2026, we will get a new provincial budget. And we need to be asking this province, will we once again be the least funded school jurisdiction in all of Canada, or did government actually hear what people were saying these last 3 weeks and make a change?
Thanks.
Michelle, please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi there, again. We just got a news release from Amnesty International Canada, who is condemning the use, Alberta's use of the notwithstanding clause. This says, by targeting teachers, the government of Alberta is attempting to silence workers, exercising their rights. An attack on their rights is an attack of us all, and then talks about how the anti-strike legislation disproportionately harms the rights of women's workers. And so basically they're saying that they stand in solidarity with the teachers of Alberta and that they support the ATA's right to strike. So I wonder if I could just get your reaction to that, or were you expecting that, Jason?
Wasn't expecting that, but I'm not surprised to hear it, because I have heard from organizations, other unions, not only in Alberta but across Canada, from the United States, about what they're seeing here in Alberta in terms of the teacher strike and what they're standing up for. Now that we've seen a government for the first time in Alberta's history invoke and pass a notwithstanding clause, I expect that we will hear more from other organizations about how this is an infringement of people's rights, and I welcome it.
Did you have a follow-up question?
Well, that's it. Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to have to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you very much for joining us today. If
Thank
need
you, everyone.
anything,
Yep.
Please reach out to myself.
Thanks.
Thank you.